Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another fun episode of Next to Madison. I'm your host, Madison Malloy, and on today's episode, we are talking longevity, how to live longer, healthier, and more optimally. I have got Josh Black. He's been on the podcast in the past. He is a longevity expert, and we are really focusing on the research and the results behind peptides and what you at home can be doing to start feeling better and feeling, but I like the looking from the vanity part, looking younger, but also feeling younger. And this is a podcast that you are not going to want to miss. You are going to want to re-listen to it. You're going to want to take notes. There's great information in this. And because of this interview that I just did, I've got to step out the door and I've got to go buy a few supplements that I know I'm adding to my routine. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It is all about feeling great. We talk a lot about mindset, but part of the healthy mind is also having a healthy body as everything works together. So we will be right back after this brief message with our guest on Next to Madison.
It's your host, Madison Malloy, and I have exciting news. My new product is now available on Amazon called Color Your Way to Abundance, a 21-day manifestation guide for wealth, health, and love. This unique coloring journal will help you manifest by coloring in the affirmations while you continue to repeat them. This will help activate these affirmations so they become a reality. Grab your copy today and relax, color, and start manifesting.
Okay, we are back with our guest, Josh Black. He's been on the show before. He is a longevity expert. He is made his passion of figuring out how to live optimally longer and healthier. His mission, his business is taking off, and he's here to talk about all things to make you live longer. And for my personal interest, look younger, because that's me. I guess I'm a little shallow, but I also want to feel good too. So Josh,
That's right.
How are you?
I'm good, Madison. It's always great to see you. It's been a minute.
I know it has been a minute. Things are taking off. Okay, so give us a quick background for those who hadn't listened to your first episode. You know, there's a reason that people should listen to you, and I want you to go into that.
Yeah, sure. So I've been operating Becoming Young as the CEO for a little over 3 years. And so that really started this journey of health span, right? Of living healthier longer started for me. I'm about to turn 46. And that started for me about 10 years ago. Had a panic attack. I was working for a private equity company, had a panic attack, thought it was a heart attack. And it really started me on the journey to uncovering what was happening inside, because I thought everything was, in a great spot. And it sort of wasn't as good as I thought, right? And so our body gives us a lot of times little red flags, and that was one little red flag for me. And so I sort of started really learning about what was going on, how we age, why we age, all the different, ways that our body is telling us, hey, check over here, check engine light. And that led me to get certified in coaching, and I have a lot of clients now who are high performers, biohackers, business owners, VPs, CEOs, all who are really looking to take their, they've got a financial planner. And so I'm the financial planner for their health, right? And so I really help them take a long-term view on what that means, because let's be honest, all of us know that the medical system, it was not built to be proactive, right? It was meant to be reactive. And so that's where I live. I live in the middle of all of that messy goodness.
Yeah, no, well, I absolutely love that, because it is true. Like, even when we talk about the aesthetic stuff, right? Like the aging, like how our skin looks, the wrinkling, the sagging, that really all starts from the inside and then shows on the outside. So
Yeah,
so go ahead.
No, it's interesting, right? I think if we think back to a lot of what all of us have been exposed to in the last 20, 30 years, right? Fad diets, or, exercise trends, or, detox shakes, right? There've been a lot of things that have sort of been proposed as being, I mean, sort of a little bit of a quick fix, but really it's that medicine 2.0 lens, right? Which is, hey, we've got a problem. How do we want to stop the leak in the boat, right?
Yeah.
And nobody until recently has really been focusing on the structural integrity of the boat. Hey, let's look at how this boat was built. How do we make sure that we're not only plugging this leak? How are we making sure that another leak doesn't spring up? And so that really is what is at the base of a lot of longevity. We call it longevity medicine, medicine 3.0. If folks are not familiar with that, it really is a look at being preventative, right? So,
Yeah.
Madison, your body is very different than any of your lady friends, who may be different ages or in a different makeup genetically, right, in their DNA. And so, it's taking a look at that personalized approach. And so that really is what is at the root of all of this is making sure that how we look at Madison is different than how we look at Josh.
Right, because yeah, it's yeah, we all have the same body types, but we operate differently. It functions just a little bit
That's right.
differently with the DNA and things of that sort. So I called you because I said, my God, we keep hearing about the rise in peptides, and you hear peptides, and now all the rage is putting salmon sperm. I don't know who's jerking off the fish, but somehow that's the thing to put on your face and inject into your face, which is a form of a peptide. So what do you know about salmon sperm? And then we can get into the peptides.
Well, I don't know much about salmon sperm. I saw some article about somebody who injected some into their ass, and then they had some like some problem. So I would say probably don't inject salmon sperm into your ass, right? That's probably not a good
Oh
idea.
my gosh.
Um, I will say this, right? I think if we look historically, there has been a lot of different a lot of different methods that have been sold as being, the fountain of youth. Whether it's gold flex, whether it's placenta, taking placenta and rubbing that somewhere or eating it, or I mean, there have been all kinds of interesting sort of kooky things, right, over many decades and hundreds of years, really, right? I mean, this was stuff that really was peddled for many years. I'm a super evidence approach based guy, so I like to look at what do we know from a like double blind trial. What can we actually measure so that we know that it actually works? I have not yet seen any salmon sperm trials, unfortunately. It doesn't mean they don't exist, but that is not something I might recommend.
Yeah. Okay. So when you talk about peptides, what type of peptides are you talking about? Are you talking about the ones you put on your skin or the ones that you're taking orally?
So there's a number of different ways that you can actually use peptides, but let's real quick just do a rewind to what peptides are. Okay. So
Perfect.
peptides are a chain of amino acids. So people have heard of amino acids. If you think back to seventh or eighth grade biology science class, right? A lot of things in the body are basically building blocks. And so we have short chain and we have medium chain and we have longer chain amino acids. Peptides are a bunch of signalers, right? So they basically they tell your body to do things. And as we age, some of those peptides, we produce those peptides in smaller amounts. And so, we might have a little bit more inflammation. We might have a little bit less ability to repair, right? Less ability to create more collagen in our skin, which also affects our tendons. And so that's part of the reason that we lose a little bit of our elasticity and our ability to stretch as we get older. It gets harder. So we produce less of that, right? And so what also happens is at the cellular level, we end up getting a little out of balance. And I think anybody who sort of takes a minute, if we take the Buddhist mentality, right? Everything, the universe needs to be balanced, like we need to be balanced with ourselves, right? And so what using peptides, whether that's taking them as a pill, whether that's injecting subcutaneously, whether that's putting it right in a cream on your face, those peptides target the cellular balance, right? So those peptides are getting to the root of some sort of imbalance and restoring what we like to call redox, which is sort of it's the balance between the mitochondria sort of functioning, and then sort of they have the they have the exhaust. I mean, this is maybe a bad analogy, but you've got the exhaust that kicks out, right? Just like a car engine. The car engine's going, you have exhaust. Well, the exhaust is sort of a necessary byproduct. How
Yeah.
do we clean up that exhaust? Well, that's through oxidization and some of the things that are happening. So now that I've explained all that, so now you've got these peptides. And so many years ago, some scientists started discovering these peptides that we already create in our body, right?
Yeah.
Um, one of the most well known, I think, is BPC 157, which is produced in the gut. It is something that has been used for athletes and gym bros for many, many years to reduce inflammation. It's used to repair gut lining. It's used to increase some blood vessel formation and things of that nature. So a lot of, it's interesting. I'm going to take a real quick diversion. Come with me, Madison.
Okay.
So if we take a look at how we sort of experiment on humans, we don't historically do a really good job of that, right? We used to take people and sort of the Egyptians did like medieval, really chaotic surgeries. I mean, amazing things, but it was sort of they were, ripping things off or reattaching things and ripping people open and all kinds of
Yeah.
weird things. The interesting thing is when we talk about some of these things like peptides, is there's sort of an interesting lineage where you see they'll use them on horses, right? Because horses are very, very important animals, and you make a lot of money, right? If a horse is racing, right? Um,
Yes.
so that's one way that we test certain things, certain molecules. We also there's also like the gym bro culture, right? And so some of the things like the biohackers, the early biohackers were guys that were in the gym and were pumping up and doing muscles. So there's a lot of history here, and so the trouble historically has been how do we know what works and what doesn't? How are we testing this, right? And we've kind of bumped into now more of medical times, right? Medicine 3.0. We do have some data on this, and I will tell you that I'm very involved with a lot of longevity doctors across the country, and even though we don't have tons of clinical trials on this, there's a lot of, N of one studies, right, of doctors who are using these things in their practice and then collaborating with lots of other doctors who are also using these in their practice with lots of success.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
so we've got these peptides,
Yeah.
and these peptides are signalers. And so one of the very, I think, most well known is the BPC 157. So if you get injured,
Okay.
um, you can take this orally. You can inject it subcutaneously. By the way, I'm not a doctor. Nothing that I'm saying is medical advice. Uh, but this is something that triggers the body's own anti-inflammatory response. And so it basically says, if you were to fall and ripped your tendon, I ripped my tricep tendon a year ago. And right, what happens, right? I bruised, and then I was swelling, right? The inflammation, that's all
Yeah.
that's normal, that's expected. But then you get scar tissue, and then the inflammation stays around, right? And then you're like, okay, well, this has now been a long time, and the body sort of is like continuing to be inflamed. Well, now what, right? What do
Okay.
you do? And one of the things that you can do is you can take peptides, and so peptides will interrupt and reprogram that inflammatory process and encourage the body to do some of its own healing. So that's one peptide, right? Is
So
BPC.
can you take that as if you're not injured? Just
Sure.
to,
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. So there's injury, right? And we could go down a whole path of injury. And I attended Peptide Congress last month and went to an amazing talk about how there's some doctors just doing some crazy research into optimizing peptides for injury recovery, right? For
Mhm.
professional athletes, for people who are in car accidents, and sort of supporting every part of the body's healing process with different peptides. It was fascinating. So
Wow.
that's sort of one thing over here. But let's just say that you're not. Let's just say that you're Madison and you're like, okay, how can I support a glow up, right? Well, there's the glow stack, which is similar to the Warrior Protocol, and so that is a combination of BPC, which we just talked about, of
Okay.
TB500, which is another peptide which helps with repairing. Well, it increases sorry, it increases blood
What's it
vessel growth.
called? T500?
TB 500. So that
TB
helps,
500.
yes, TB
Okay.
500. That's going to help with blood vessel growth. It helps with tissue modeling, right? It really helps with that. And then you support that also with copper, which is GHKCU. And so copper is something that really helps with your collagen, right? So if you think about skin, tendons,
Yeah.
anything that has collagen, that copper is going to help. So you see a lot of creams now that have some copper peptide in the creams. You can put that on, right? Um, and I would say this is a tough place to be because it's a little bit of the Wild West still, right?
Yeah.
Peptides, peptides. Some doctors are prescribing peptides, which is awesome. You can get peptides from certain places online without a prescription if you want to sort of do it yourself, DIY. Um, and so it just is sort of the Wild West, right? It's not
Yeah.
regulated in much of a way. So then you've got people putting it in creams and everything else. Um,
Okay, so
so
I want to
I'll
go back
stop
to the
there.
I want to go back to the copper thing because you said the so a lot of people, have these collagen powders. Like Vital Proteins is a very
Sure.
popular one. They'll put them in their coffee in the morning or any other collagen type powders. Are you saying that copper is actually better than putting those collagen powders in your
I don't know
coffee?
that it's better. What I would say is that there are different mechanisms of action for a lot of this stuff. So if you think about your body producing collagen, which it gets increasingly worse at as we age, right?
Yeah.
And it evaporates through our skin. There's all kinds of weird stuff that
Ugh,
happens. So I like supporting that with a number of things because it's mechanistically different, right? So if you think of taking collagen powder, those are just amino acid chains again, right? So you're taking those amino acids. Let's just do biology for a minute. You take these different, there's a bunch of these building blocks, Legos that are together. You take them in, you break them apart, and then your body reconstitutes them again as collagen, right? Like that's how it works. I mean, that's a very, very grotesque explanation, but in its simplest form, that's sort of what happens. Um,
okay.
so when you take copper actually takes, I think it's like multiple thousands of pathways that it activates. So it's actually sort of nudging your body to do a whole bunch of stuff that it does. It's not supplementing, it's not turning into collagen. It is that copper is basically touching a bunch of little on-off switches, right? And it's saying, do this, do this, do this, do this. And the body basically gets primed and goes, oh wow. Like this is something that's really going to help. So that's sort of what I would not say that's an either or. I would say that is a thing that you want to also add in if you wanted to talk about doing this. And
So is it
copper.
in pill form, powder form,
So
liquid?
there's some copper that I've seen that is in like a lotion or a cream. I have not seen a whole lot of data on the efficacy of that, right? So you're going to get two kinds of data. You're going to get your anecdotal data for people saying I've used this cream with copper peptides in it, and it's the bee's knees, right? Um, that being said, are you getting results because you're just using a better face cream, right? Like, is it the actual peptides, right? Um,
Yeah.
there are some folks who sell the combination capsules. Uh, from the data that I've seen, the challenge with the capsule formulation is what makes it past the GI tract, right? What actually are you getting? So
Okay.
I've seen various numbers of anywhere between 40 and 65 or 70% efficacy, which means like I'm a Midwestern guy, so I like to maximize my deals, right? I'm a deal guy. My son called me the other day and said, I got what did he bought a canoe. He's like, Dad, I got a canoe. But he was very proud that he didn't pay full price. So it's like a $500 canoe, but I only paid $300. I'm like, great job. So,
Yeah.
so, so
Nice.
I always sort of like cringe if I'm going to take a pill where 40% of that pill is going to be a waste. right?
Ah,
It doesn't mean that it's maybe that's for you, right? Maybe you don't, maybe this is something that works for you. But for me personally, I prefer to inject, right? Because if I inject in my belly, just like I'm a diabetic, right? In
okay.
my belly, I know I'm getting 100% of that, right? That gets right into the fat.
So you're injecting copper?
Yeah, sure. Copper
Well,
peptide. It's not copper, it's a copper
well,
peptide.
yeah. You're like, I'm not grinding up pennies. And then you're the BPC and the TB 500, that's injectable too?
I inject whenever I'm on that protocol, I do inject. Um,
Okay, so that's a glow stack protocol is what you called it.
That's a glow stack protocol. If you do a little Googling, you'll find it's very funny, right? So that used to be the Wolverine protocol because it addresses inflammation, it addresses tissue remodeling and stem cell migration, and it addresses collagen production, right? So for an injury, all three, I mean, and it does more than that, but I'm being sort of high level on this. So for an injury, that's awesome. When I took that, for instance, for my tricep tear, I noticed my skin got improved pretty, I wouldn't say dramatically because my skin's already decent, but I did notice a difference, right? My fine lines and wrinkles seem to be less fine and less wrinkles.
So how
um,
long is this? How long did you do this for? A week? 3 weeks?
so again, this is not medical advice. My particular protocol, and I did this. I have a good friend of mine who is a regenerative medicine doctor who I talk with, and I'm in the industry. So in varying degrees, it's usually like a 4, 6, or 8 week protocol.
Okay. And
That's not
during
too long.
this time, can you go out and be social and
Oh yeah, sure.
have a
So
drink or
yeah,
two?
so
Okay.
this is, well, I mean, we could talk about drinks, Madison, what that does to your skin. But
Yeah, exactly, right? You're like, damn, can I put
but
collagen powder in my Coors Light? That'd be great.
I I think that's very different than something like microneedling. Like, there are folks that are microneedling peptides, and so they'll take copper and they'll microneedle with copper, the copper peptide. And what that does, right, is that will actually get, you have multiple different layers of skin,
Yeah,
and your skin is designed to keep shit out, right? Like do not enter. And so
right.
when you microneedle, you get past the first few protective layers and you sort of get at that the base layer because you've got, and I'm not a biologist or a doctor, so I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what that's called. But
Okay.
you get at a very deep layer, which is sort of where a lot of this stuff originates, where the collagen synthesis. Remember, we talked about balancing and the cell
Yeah,
and the homeostasis of the system. So
yeah,
when you microneedle and shove, you're just shoving that stuff in there. You
right.
microneedle that copper peptide. Well, what are you getting? You're basically getting a super collagen activator at the base level of your system, right? That's producing collagen. So that's something that's real effective at reducing fine lines and wrinkles, helping skin tone, and really kind of tightening you up. You're not going to go out after microneedling for a couple days, probably.
Right, but most people microneedle with PRP. Where they take the blood and the
Yep,
white blood cell.
sure.
Do you think, and it's okay, do you think copper microneedling copper is better results?
I think they each sort of have a different mechanism of action, right? I think
Right.
if you think of, I think you have varying levels, right, of like how much you want to spend. I mean, ultimately, if I had my choice, I'd probably microneedle with exosomes, which are derivatives of stem cells,
Yes.
right? Like that.
Okay.
That's probably going to. That's sort of like if you have like platinum level, that's sort of your platinum level, right? You're going to have some exosomes, you're going to shove those
Yep.
in there. That is where, that's where it's at.
So
Um,
exosomes are all the rage. Yeah, because the thing with PRP or PRF, it's a new thing. But the thing is like, yeah, it's taking your own blood, but like, what if you haven't really been eating that properly or your
sure, that's right.
nutrition or you've been drinking? Like that's going to affect the results. So yeah, exosomes are great, but I've had it microneedled on. It was fine. I've had it put on after laser, but I have never had it injected. Can you inject
Sure.
exosomes into this like
Yeah. So
especially
so
for the
you
under eye little, little buggers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. So a good friend of mine, Dr. Jeff Gross, is at the Recelebrate Clinic out in Vegas. So him and I collaborate on some stuff. I'll have to ask him. I've never asked him specifically about under
Yeah.
eye.
And if he ever
I
needs like a
genetically have the
person,
under eye bags, Madison. So maybe that's something that I should consider.
why don't we go to Vegas together and then he can do a guy and a girl and then we can be his little test dummies.
I'll ask him. I think that sounds like a great idea.
Perfect. On to Vegas we go.
On to Vegas. So that's sort of that glow up, combo, right? So
Yeah.
so that's the first bit. Um, there are a lot of peptides. There's like hundreds of peptides, right? So there are peptides for mitochondrial health. There's peptides um,
Wow.
for like mental clarity. There's peptides. Well, I mean, Ozempic is a peptide, right? So there's
You're
Ozempic is a
right.
peptide. You've got Ozempic, you've got GLP-1s, you've got GLP-2s, you've got GLP-3s.
Okay,
So
what's the difference between a GLP-1, 2, and 3? I thought
yeah,
all the weight loss are GLP-1s.
yeah. So GLP-1 is sort of, their first generation, but they attach to one receptor, right?
Okay.
And then you've got GLP-2s, which attach to two different docking points. And then you've got GLP-3s, which are three different docking points. And so they all work a little differently, but
Huh.
they are basically there to sort of enhance the body's ability to have metabolic control, right?
Okay, so a GLP-1 is your Ozempic, your Manjaros. What is a GLP-2?
I think GLP-2 is trizepatide, I think.
Trizepatide. Okay, I've done that one.
Yeah, and then there's GLP-3s, which is retatrutide. Sorry, say that 5 times fast.
Richard,
Um,
yeah.
they call that it's Retta, right? So that's the third. That's not FDA approved for an indication yet, but that's available, as a quote unquote research purpose sort of deal.
So, are there any GLP-1 type things that people can take orally or, because you see like yerba magic tea has been something that's been trending where they're like, oh, it kind of acts like a GLP-1. It's the Ozempic without the shot. But I don't know.
I don't know. I find that to be maybe an outstanding marketing claim. I
Yeah,
don't I don't
they
know
they
that
do a
would
good
pass the
job on that
test.
TikTok shit, don't they?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so let's move on because I have a
Yep.
feeling this is probably a peptide too. This is all the rage as well, is the Amra colostrum or
Oh,
colostrum. Amra
colostrum.
just happens to be the brand. Colostrum. Is that a sort of peptide as well?
Uh, so yes, it contains some peptides. I don't know. I'm not an expert as much on that. I will tell you that there is a lot of health benefits on colostrum, right?
Yeah,
Colostrum is sort of the superfood of infants everywhere, right? Um,
right.
for a while, they were well, not they. I mean, they are sourcing that from like bovine stuff. So they were getting it like literally out of cows. So that was sort of the first gen. And so now they're trying to take that and actually clean that up a little bit and actually produce it in a way that's not necessarily direct from a cow. So there is, I believe, some benefit to that. But we'll have to put a pin in that one because I don't have enough information on that to be able to be super helpful right now.
Fair enough. All right, next one that's all the rage, NAD.
So NAD is real interesting. I think it's a good headline. So, for anybody who doesn't know what NAD is, it's a nicotinamide nanonucleotide. And so it is. So let's talk about the mitochondria for a minute. Let's go back to seventh grade biology. So, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? Every cell has a little engine in it. And part of the reason that we feel sluggish and maybe are not all the way with it as we age is those mitochondria don't get as efficient. They slow down. They're not as resilient. They're unbalanced, right? So they're fuel source and NAD is a fuel source for mitochondria. So we like to have enough NAD, and the studies show that as we age, our NAD levels lower. And so one of the first people sort of to bring this sort of to consumer awareness was Dr. David Sinclair out of Harvard, who talked about this, like largely, right? And so he did this because he had done some big studies, and one of the big pharma companies had bought a patent off his because he had showed that increasing um, like increasing the sirtuin gene via resveratrol and that pathway sort of gave him claim to fame, and then we started talking about this NAD stuff. So,
Okay.
but this is what we don't know, Madison. We don't know that this actually works. We don't have any actual studies showing that increasing NAD actually gives us results. So we have some anecdotal stuff showing that NAD can increase some performance, like sports performance and things of that nature. And we've got a lot of IV clinics selling NAD bags to people
Yes.
um,
Yes.
for a fair amount of money. And I would simply say this, that for my money, I don't know that that's where I'd spend it, right? But I'm also exercising a lot. So I feel like,
And
I'm sort of doing
exercise
my own.
actually increases your NAD levels
Yeah.
naturally, correct?
Yeah. Correct. Correct.
Okay. So
So
how,
it's tough, right? This is where this sort of like the biohackers are here, and the doctors are here, and the consumers are here, right? And in the
right.
middle here, you and I are right now. And so trying to triangulate across all these things, we don't have really good human trials to know that NAD is
Interesting.
worth, right, the money. There are some instances where if you are sick, that there is probably some benefit. But I believe, based on what I've read, the real benefit is for people who are like very depleted of NAD, right? I don't know that the population in general is like NAD depleted, right? Like we can say in the Midwest, for instance, that the vast majority of folks are vitamin D deficient. Like that
I would
is
say everywhere now because you don't want to get wrinkles from the sun, so we're constantly covered up.
But that's something that's like we've done a ton of measurement. Like there's a lot of not just anecdotal data. Like doctors are like, I've seen thousands of patients. Like we know this to be true, and we, like that is like I don't know that we have the numbers to know that a lot of people are NAD depleted, but we do know that NAD goes down. It does reduce with age. So
Yeah.
I, that's a tough one.
Okay, so you mentioned something, you said that's not where I would spend my money. So that leads to the question of where would you spend your money? After working with all these experts and all this knowledge.
So I think I've got three things. So, and I'll preface this with I spend a lot of time. I lift heavy 4 days a week. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm currently training to walk the runway for New York Fashion Week. So I am
Wait, I'm
very,
sorry. We'll
yes,
get back to that.
we'll get back to that. So I am
I
really
better get
intense.
tickets, dude.
I
I
I am
better
very
get
intense about
tickets.
this 46-year-old body.
I love
So
it.
so I'm spending a lot of time every week doing my cardio and doing my lifting, so my and doing my food, right? So and my sleep. So all of those base items, I'm investing a lot of my own time in those. But for the things that are the sort of extras, where am I spending my money? I would say I'm all in on peptides right now. So
Okay.
until I A, see data that contradicts what I've already seen, and B, until I get results that are not what I've already gotten for myself. I have seen injury repair from that warrior stack, right? On my tricep. Significant injury repair in 6 weeks.
Wow.
After 6 months of pain, 6 weeks, I was like at an 8 out of 10 out of pain, and then it went to like a 1 in 6 weeks. That was the only thing
Wow.
that I changed. It was clearly that. Okay. I've had good results with ipamorelin and CJC, which is an HGH precursor.
CJC, and what was the other one?
CJC, ipamorelin. So
How do you
so
spell that?
IPAMORELIN. And so
What are
HGH, like
those?
so if we think about, I think everybody's familiar with hormone supplementation, right? So you can do HRT, men and women,
Yeah,
whether you're
I got
perimenopause.
testosterone in my ass.
Yes, yes. So um, one thing that's sort of adjacent to that is HGH, human growth hormone. And so if inject HGH to these hyperphysiologic levels, your own body's ability to produce shuts it down, right? We do know as you age, your production of HGH goes down along with testosterone and other hormones. But you can support your own pulse, right? And so ipamorelin or samorelin or tesamorelin, those are all three, and CJC. Those basically prime your body and give your body an extra kick in the ass and say, hey guys, next time you pulse this, give it everything you got. Right. And so it bumps your levels. You're not going to get super physiologic levels because what does the body want to do? The body wants to balance. And
Yeah.
so when you're taking these peptides, it's different than taking HGH because if you take HGH, just like testosterone, I met somebody the other day. The guy's 55 years old. His testosterone is 1100. That is super physiological, right?
He's
No
very
50
horny. That's a very horny man.
probably no
Yeah.
55-year-old is going to naturally have 11 that like they're just not, right? But same thing with HGH, right? No
Yeah.
55-year-old is going to have super physiologic levels of HGH, but we can bump those up by maybe 20, 25, 30% if we inject peptides. So,
Do you
so
take
that's
those ones every day?
yeah, you got to cycle this stuff. So everything is about right. It's an ebb and a flow, and you want to make sure that the body is constantly not getting used to things. And so ipamorelin right now I'm on a 12 week cycle. I think about 3 weeks out from being done. And I even pulse it. I only do 5 days a week, right? And so I'm a weirdo, Madison. So I have everything planned out, very very particularly, and I take them on days that I'm lifting because it helps the body comp and the muscle gain on those days. And then on my rest days, I take a different peptide to help with my fat mobilization and to keep it's a mitochondrial supercharger, right? And so that helps keep my mitochondria. So anyway, so I would say back to your original question, where am I spending my money? Peptides are helping support my active lifestyle, right? And my
Mm-hmm.
ability to keep my health span going as long as possible. That's probably the first place that I would invest my money.
Okay.
The second place is going to be in exosomes. And you
And
can do those just in an IV if you don't even have an injury, right? Um,
oh, so you're like go to a center and you inject exosomes
yeah, you get an IV. They give you a bag, right?
of exosomes?
Yes.
Oh, so they can inject it into your face.
Yeah.
They can inject it into your arm. They could definitely inject it
Yeah.
into your face. Okay, and then what else what else?
Oh man. I mean, the last thing I would invest is just in keeping consistent, right? Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it doesn't matter whether it's peptides or bicep curls or sleep, right? The the success is in the consistency. Doesn't matter. And so
Yeah.
it's not really about getting the newest gadget and getting red light on your face every day and like I mean listen, there are so many, cold plunging, RF, like keep RF things, seed oils, red light. I could probably list 100 different things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the fact of the matter is, between you and me, there's just no possible way you can do all these things anyway. So
Yeah.
you've got to kind of bite off the things that are the biggest things to chew, right? And then every once in a while throw in something else that's sort of interesting to try for you.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy too because here's the thing also is like the majority of people out there don't, I mean, they not that they don't have access to stuff, but like they can't go to all these centers and like
Sure.
shove in IV bags of exosomes. It gets very expensive.
Very expensive.
So
Yeah.
for like the average person, if they want to live like a healthy life and feel good and look good, what can they be doing? I know that like fasting helps increase HGH. I've heard that. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
Give us the poor man's protocol. Like, I
yeah,
want to know what
for
people can
sure.
start doing. Like, people are listening to this right now. They're driving down the road, they're walking, they're doing something, they're sitting at work, and they're like, I really just, I want to look better, I want to feel younger, and I just what are like five, three or four or five things that
I'll
they
give you
can
three
start
things.
doing?
I'll give you three
Okay.
things, right? The number one thing that you're going to do that is going to increase your hormones. It's going to make you feel better and have more energy. It's
Uh-huh.
going to prime you to lose fat if you've got it, which is over 50% of the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is lifting heavy. Go 3 days to the gym. 3 days. You don't have to be me. You don't have to lift. I lift, an hour 4 days a week, right?
It's
That
great.
you don't have that. Well, yeah, it is. It's great for me and I feel fantastic, but you don't even have to do that much. So start small. Go for 2 or 3 days for 30 minutes, right? Go to failure. Like this thing where you
So
go to the
that's why
gym.
people say lifting heavy. You're not lifting to where you can keep doing all this stuff,
And you've seen those guys in the gym, Madison. You've seen those people who are in the gym and they're like, I'm just gonna do this thing, and they're like doing the thing, and I'm like, what are you doing? So,
Yeah.
don't hurt yourself, but go and you can lift lighter if you just want to lift and do a ton of reps, right? But get tired, like walk out and be like, wow, that was kind of hard. Like that's the number one
Yeah.
thing.
It's always like the last three you should be shaking or else the weight's not heavy enough.
Yeah, I mean, just like I remember I was at the gym a couple days ago, and I train with a guy who does Ironmen and triathletes and all this stuff, and I came home, and I went to wash my hands because I wash my hands every time I come home from the gym, and I could barely keep my arms up to wash my hands in the sink because it was shoulder day, and my shoulders were they were trashed. Like that was a good workout. That was a great workout.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
number one. So that's the number one thing that you should do. Number two is absolutely do not eat 3 hours before bed,
Okay. And that includes drinking alcohol too, right?
for sure.
Okay.
Or I mean, at least do that 3 or 4 days a week, right? That's going to improve your sleep. If you improve your sleep, you're going to get a boost on your hormones. Your HGH will go up because you're going to have a better deep sleep cycle. You're going to have better reparative cycles as well. So that is like something that literally takes. I mean, it takes a little bit of willpower, but it is like super easy to do, and it costs you literally nothing. It may even save you a
Yeah,
few bucks on a drink.
absolutely. And then what's the third thing you do?
I would say the third thing, and this is going to be, I mean, you might have seen this in your feed. I'm a huge fan of creatine. So everybody thinks creatine is for gym bros. I grew up in the 90s. I was in school in
Yeah,
the 90s. And that was sort of what it was. Creatine is one of the most studied supplements on the face of the planet. It has benefits not only for muscle health, but it also has benefit for mental health. That it has shown to be as
Wow.
effective as anti-anxiety or antidepressants in vast numbers of folks. Um,
Wow.
and so I am a big believer in a minimum of 5 grams of creatine. I mean, people don't take my word for it. Look it up. You can see like Google depression and creatine. It is a mood lifter all over the place.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I gotta
It
get some.
can. Here's a little caveat. Sometimes you got to it can upset your gut a little bit and just make you have to go to the bathroom a couple times. So,
Okay.
if you're going to try it out, maybe just, put it in a sipper and just make
Okay.
sure you sip it and, don't like slam down 5 grams of creatine, like I'm fine with it,
Right.
but
Or where it depends. Yeah.
that's right.
That's correct. Okay, so interesting.
And
Yeah.
that's cheap. Creatine's cheap. It's cheap.
So do you do the powder? I know there's like creatine
Mhm.
gummies, so like probably
Again,
the
I
powder
find
is
that to be
better.
overcharged. I find that to just be like, like put it in some water. Like I put it in my protein shake every day. You know what I mean? Like it
5
doesn't,
grams at once?
oh
Just
yeah, just,
a
it's just a
dump it
little
in.
tiny, it's like 5 grams is a tiny little scoop. Tiny, tiny
Yeah.
baby scoop.
And you have felt the effects like right away.
Oh, I mean, I will say again, subjectively, that a couple times when I've either been traveling or whatever, I'll feel a little bit different. I feel sharper. I feel a little lighter on it. And there's a lot of studies now coming out. There's, I think, two or
Wow.
three different studies specifically um, on folks who have gotten like a really shitty night of sleep. And so taking like large doses, sometimes up to 10 over the day, actually completely ameliorates all mental fuzziness. You know what it's like when you get like 3, 4 hours of sleep and
Yeah. Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
I feel just terrible. Um, that taking like 10 to 20 grams of creatine basically puts you on par with somebody who got a full night's sleep.
But not all at once.
Well, you probably would have a major, I don't know. Yeah, so
Diarrhea explosion.
yeah, you'd have to change your pants, I think, if you took all that at once. I don't know how
I
that
didn't
goes.
know that creatine made you shit.
It can just actually, it doesn't for everybody, but there's some people who are definitely sensitive to it. I will tell you that I'm totally fine with 1 gram. If I try to take 2 grams, I'm in the bathroom like
But you're
pretty
taking
quickly.
5, so you're running there. You
Sorry,
must
sorry,
take it
sorry.
while you're in
Scoops.
the
I'm sorry.
toilet.
I mean scoops. I'm fine with
Oh,
five. Sorry, I misspoke. So I'm fine with 5 grams. But if I go to 10 grams, like that next 5 grams has to be a little spaced out.
so it's probably a good thing if you're backed up.
Yeah, probably. I should recommend that to folks if they're maybe that's the solve. So if you're on a GLP, if you're on a peptide for weight loss,
I take it occasionally just to curb the appetite.
so one of the things that can happen if you take it more regularly is it slows down your gut a little bit. And that usually happens second to third week ish. Like you just are going less. Like,
Yeah. Well, it's
but
you're
maybe
also
I should.
not eating much.
Well, right, but maybe I should recommend that people take 10 grams of creatine. Problem solved.
That's problem solved is right. Yeah, and it definitely helps with the number on the scale, if you know what I mean.
That's right.
That wow. Okay, anything else that you would
I mean, there's so many things, right? I would say, you know, don't take maybe the fourth thing that I'll give you is what not to do. Okay.
Okay.
Is I think a lot of folks see stuff in their feed and they're buying whatever supplements and they're like, I'm going to take this because, it seems popular. I have a real
Yeah.
strong opinion on that. And that is don't take anything unless you have tested your blood work and you know that what you're
Oh,
taking is addressing something at the root level. And so whether
okay.
that's vitamin D, like test your blood. What's your vitamin D level? What do you need to
Yes.
support your vitamin D, right? Um, there are some things, other things, and B vitamins. What's your B12 level? Like really, if you are
Yeah,
somebody
I
who doesn't eat a
take
lot of
that.
meat, your B level is going to be lower, right? If you don't eat a lot of fish, get an omega panel. You're going to have to get a good omega supplementation if you're not eating fish. So test before you take it. Don't blow your dollar bills on something, just because Brian Johnson said that, it's one of his
Yeah.
150 supplements.
Okay, so how often should people be getting full panel blood work?
I typically recommend for my clients that they get blood work. We do one big panel a year, and then the other 3 quarters we do supplementals.
Okay.
And I work with a doctor that does that.
So what do you think of like the electrolyte packets? Like I have these and I love these.
I think they're great for specific uses, right?
Okay.
I think
Like I like to do it in the morning. I put it in my water just so I get an extra hydration boost. But everyone said if you took a pinch of salt, it'd do the same thing.
it pretty much will. So I will
Save my
I will
money.
I will tell you that this is the deal, right? Go back to the body is an unbelievable machine. It self-regulates to a degree that we actually don't really understand yet, right? Like if we understood
Wow.
how the body does all this stuff, we'd already have cured cancer and we'd be living forever, right? But we haven't. It is a very, very complex system. And so adding a little salt or whatever, like the body self-regulates so quickly with that kind of stuff. You
Yeah.
just don't need like a lot of extra. When I like using those kinds of things, hey, you're going to go for a run. You're going to go outside for a hike. It's going to be hot out. I play paddle during the winter. And so sometimes if I'm doing tournaments and I'm going to be on the court for multiple hours, I'll pre-hydrate, right? And I'll
Yeah.
get some stuff because I just know I'm going to be drinking less. So
Yeah.
those are the kind of things that where it makes sense. Like, do you really need that on a daily basis? Listen, it's probably not hurting you, but is it helping? Probably not a whole lot.
So, and then this was something that I saw like on TikTok and I'm like, oh, that looks good. AstraZeneca or astaxanthin, astaxanthin,
Astaxanthin. So
astaxanthin.
astaxanthin is is
Or
actually really great. So that is something that I would
okay.
recommend. Yep.
Okay, so I fell for that one. Okay.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So I need to do creatine. Um, and then what about like have you heard of the calm powders? They're supposed to be good for like your cortisol levels.
Oh, calm. Like, are those the ones that
It's
have like
called calm.
ashwagandha and that kind of stuff in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, part of aging well, Madison, is managing your stress. And
100%,
I
yeah.
think, there are a variety of ways that you can do that. And so, and there's all kinds of different molecules and substances that we can use in order to help with that, right? I mean, it's part of the reason people smoke pot, right? I mean, it helps on one hand, it it's a double-edged sword, but that's part of how it helps people calm down. And so I'm not condoning that. But you've got that on sort of one side, and then you've got things like magnesium or ashwagandha, and there's like multiple kinds of magnesium. So be careful. I would always recommend glycinate. If you do the citrate, you're going to have a bathroom problem again, most
Oh
likely.
yeah, magnesium. Yeah, that's the shit one. And then what's the yeah.
And
I know you're supposed to take magnesium like at night. I had a bottle of magnesium in my nightstand, but I always forget to take it.
so I,
I would
so
just
I
take it.
actually split my dose, but again, I'm using it also for muscle support. So I take part of my
Okay.
dose in midday if I'm lifting, just as I'm recovering, and then I'll try to take that second
So
half
maybe
of
I
the dose
should
at
do
night.
that too, because I do want to like get more like jacked. Like I call them like I'm like I want muff diver arms, you know what I mean? It's like a little bit tougher.
Muff
So I
diver.
probably need to do that. Because I lift heavy. I don't do any cardio. I do no cardio.
Well,
The
you
only
should do some
cardio I
cardio.
do,
You got to do some cardio.
I do cardio that I enjoy. I enjoy walking in New York City because I have to, and I really like bike riding. I like it.
Okay,
I'm
that's
not going
great.
to a damn spin class, no
No,
way. But
no,
I'm
no.
gonna take my bike that I own and I'm gonna go up on the water, and I'll do that. But I don't do rest really between my weights, so I'll lift for 45 minutes to an hour, and I'm not really resting, so I'm getting winded. So like
Yeah,
I
it's,
get
it's
like
not
some like
quite the same though.
cardio.
It's not quite the same though.
I know. But I just I don't run because, I grew up in Colorado where the sun is just horrific and it's you're so close to the sun and it's dry and there was these women that would run like when I was little and they just looked so old and their faces were like hanging off their bone structure and they just looked terrible. And somebody was like, yeah, runners typically have saggier faces because the gravity and the pounding and the constant pounding. So I said, unless they can make a bra from my face, I refuse to run. I was an athlete my whole life. As soon as I was done with athletes, I'm like, I don't need to really like do long distance running because I don't want a saggy face. So
That
that's when I was like, I'm biking.
that sounds to me like one of those things from the 70s or 80s where they would say that like women shouldn't run because their uterus would fall out. That
I
that was
don't like running, so I'd rather bike. But I'm like,
That's okay.
but
Are
here's the thing is when you're pounding, you feel your face. You feel it. You're
I
like,
guess.
douche, the douche, the douche.
Have you done a weighted vest with your walking yet?
No.
Oh, that's super in, Madison. Super in.
Strap that onto all my meetings when I head over to Fox News. I'll be like, yeah, let me take off my vest. They're gonna be like, what is that? Is that a bomb? I'm like, no. It's my weighted vest, so I look sexy on this channel, so I can find myself a nice husband. Call in, hotline's open. Well, this has been awesome. Okay, so tell us where people can find you. I know where to fucking find you, but
You got my number.
they
So
need to know where to find you.
that's right. So you can find me online at Younger Josh Black. You can also find me at becomingyoung.io or the Becoming Young podcast. I took a month off. I'm starting again next week.
I need to
And
come on and talk about my hormones.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm speaking at the Biohackers World Conference in Chicago, like I don't know, in a couple weeks. And then I am also super excited because November 1st, I am putting on the younger event in Chicago, which is a one night talk back with five of the leading longevity voices in the country: Matt Kaberlin, Dr. Jeff Gross, and Dr. Tyler Saunders, and a bunch of folks alongside the Longevity Education Foundation. So I'm really excited for that. Oh, and Anar Isman at Ageless RX. So I'm real excited about that. Chicago's a little behind the longevity movement. So I'm trying to pull us into this medicine 3.0 world, but you can find me anywhere online. Just Google me. There's not a whole lot of Josh Blacks.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming back on and educating me. And now I'm going to go run out and buy some creatine because that is one thing I do not have.
Oh yeah. Get it. Get it. 5 grams a day. You're good.
Okay. Then I'll be good. And I'll let you know if I have 10. I'll call you from the toilet. Anyways, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's listening. We will see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.